lounging, son.
So welcome back to the Comic Lounge, another episode of Creator Chat. My name's Ryan, and today I'm talking to one of my favorite writers in comic books, Joshua Williamson. He just ended an epic run on Flash, and it's one of my favorites, and I'm so happy to have you here to talk about it today, man.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. This will be fun. It's good to talk again.
Yeah, so like I said, you just ended over 100 issues if you include annuals, all that stuff. How does it feel to have it done finally?
Oh, it's super weird. Like I know I'm gonna miss it, you know, and it's a very weird feeling. It's like even though I knew about it for a long time, and I felt like, you know, we had kind of been planning things a certain way, and so I knew about it for a long time that I was gonna basically end around 101, right? Like we kind of always knew that, which is what I ended on with 101. 762 would have been issue 101. So I always knew that. So kind of going into it, I kind of had like a lot of, I don't know, a prep for it. You know, like I kind of saw it coming in a lot of ways. So I knew I was going to get myself ready for it. And then when it finally went to print, I don't know, man, there's a lot of, when you're making comic books, I can't remember who said this best. Somebody on Twitter one time said this, but they were like, every comic book that goes to print is a miracle, right? Like, because there's so many things that can happen. There's so many parts and so many pieces. But even on these last issues, because like Speed Metal and Flash 762 went to the printer on the same week. And I felt like it was crucial that they went out. Basically, like 762 could not be late. Like they couldn't come out one before the other necessarily. Like 762 could have came out by itself and then Speed Metal, but you know, I just wanted them both out on the same day so I could be like, look, like here's the Barry book, here's the Wally book, and this is the ending. And so there was a lot of anxiety about like making sure that happened and looking at every little detail and putting things in that people might not notice and trying to figure everything out. So all of that, like once that happened, even then I was like, well, I gotta get back to work on this other thing. So it was like, I haven't really like, I don't know. I know I'll miss it. I know I'll miss those characters and I still think about them. But I do feel like I was done with that story and I was done with what I wanted to say with both of them for now. That I was able to kind of be like, all right, cool, I did this thing. And so yeah, it is a weird feeling. It's definitely weird to be working on something for so long and then not work on it anymore. There's also been a little bit of a relief because it was a double ship. I was talking to Scott Snyder this week about it, and I was like, you know, he of all people, I think, understands what it's like when you have a character you've worked on become part of your identity. It's like so much of Scott is Batman. Like people, you know, like people think of Batman when they think of him, you know, like it's such a piece of him. And so we were talking about that a little bit, and I told him, I was like, dude, I understand you and relate to you now more than I think ever, of that feeling of like this one character being so much a part of you. Yeah, man. So it is a weird feeling, but I'm glad, and the stuff that I'm talking to them about doing next and things that I want to do are really exciting, and I'm glad to start doing new stuff. Back in the summer of 2016 when Flash launched, I was doing Flash, but I was also doing two other books. I was doing Birthright and Nailbiter. Mm-hmm. And there was a moment this last year where I sat back and was like, man, I'm still doing Flash, Nailbiter, and Birthright. And so I was like, you know, I really do need to start changing things up. And so that's why I was happy when Flash is ending. Nailbiter is only a short story, and Birthright's going to end at 50 next year. So sometime next year, probably in the summer. But it was like, okay, cool. Like I need to start doing something new. So it feels good.
Yeah, and you know, especially like, I mean, we've talked before, but I want to ask it again. Like your love of the characters is so evident, and for such a diehard Flash fan as myself, to see like this last arc there's moment after moment where like I was taking pictures of the book and sending it to my brother because I was like, dude, look, you have to check this out. for the end of the run to read it all, right?
Yeah.
First, it's two parts. So one, was always important for you to make sure you brought back the characters that you brought back. And can you share some of your favorite Flash stories also? Because, I mean, obviously, there's a reason you brought the characters back.
Yeah, there was no way I was going to leave the book without doing that. Like, that just, it wasn't going to happen, you know? Like, and I think I always used to make this joke about how they were gonna have to take it from my like cold dead hands, you know. But that was part of why. It was like, oh, there's no way I'm not doing this. Like I would, oh man, that would hurt my soul, dude. Like if I left this book and left it without like Bart and Max and Jesse back, and without putting some things back with Wally and putting certain things in play, I couldn't live with myself. Like I think that's that's the honest truth. Like I know that I wanted to end the book with a lot of that stuff back, and it's part of why it all factors into why I left when I did. It's like knowing that getting closer and closer and putting all the pieces on the table to get that stuff back and to get there. I knew that's why I had to leave like then, to kind of be like, all right, cool, I did it, you know, and to sort of definitely push. Like getting that stuff back is always a push. You can't just say, oh, I'm gonna do it and then have a plan, or just do it just because. Like I was always having to work with DC and talk to them. I mean, because at the very beginning I was asked about Bart and Max particularly. I actually thought Jesse would be the easier one to bring back, and then it just I couldn't get it across the finish line, for no pun intended. It's interesting how like Max and Jesse were going. My very first, not my very first pitch, but like the first like Lightning Strikes Twice pitch, the first like the Speed Force Storm pitch. In that, I had Max and Jesse in it. Like they were gonna be people who were hit by the lightning, and then he would find out stuff about them. But that was back during like New 52 was still going on. Like that's the thing about when I started working on this book. When I first started pitching it to DC, I did not know about Rebirth. Like, you know, you're talking about, I started pitching it to them, you know, like San Diego Comic-Con 2015. So I was coming in being like, I have this whole plan. And at the time, what they were doing was they were always like reintroducing characters with kind of a little bit of a twist. You know, it's like how Bart was Bartor and all that kind of stuff. Like they were doing these sort of like twists on the characters. And so I was like, well, I just want to bring back Max and Jesse particularly, and let me see if I can do that. And then I remember sitting down with Jeff and we were talking about Max Mercury, and it was like, no, Max Mercury is Max Mercury. Like when we bring back Max Mercury, I was like, oh, okay, that's great, because I really like that character. As we started talking about it more, and then those early meetings, they did not tell me about Rebirth, because it was like I'm still being brought in. They're not going to like open all the doors to me and show me all the secrets. But it took like maybe 2 weeks. It was like 2 weeks after I wrote issue 1. I got a call from them. And they're like, okay, here's what's going on. Like, here's what's happening. And this is what I remember they were like, well, and we had planned out the first 8 issues already, like mapped out the first. This is part of why Wally's not in the first 8 issues. We had mapped out the first 8 issues, like beat for beat. We knew it was going to happen. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm writing. I was just writing quickly. I was like, I'm moving. And then I got a call, and they were like, Wally has to be in issue 9. I was like, great, perfect. Like, and so that's as soon as he's in the book, other than the Rebirth issues, as soon as he's in the book is there. As for favorites, you know, I think it's evident in the work, and especially with Finish Line. But, you know, Return of Barry Allen is easily my favorite. I like Terminal Velocity a lot. I think Terminal Velocity is really good. I really like the Zoom stuff, obviously. You know, it's like, I feel like that stuff you can, like, it's funny, when I was working on that, I could not find my Blitz trade. When I worked on Flash 4, I couldn't find my Blitz trade anywhere, which is fine because I have the digital access, so I can read all that stuff digitally and reference it if I need to. But my Blitz trade, like, it disappeared because I was using it in the beginning. So, like, when I was first starting to build Flash 4 and think about what I wanted, and I know that story pretty well. So I was like, all right, cool. Well, I want to make sure I can reference little things. And so I had that Blitz trade, and then it just disappeared. Like, and when I finally got to actually writing, I couldn't find it until way later. I have it now, but I couldn't find it. But yeah, right behind me here, it's just, I haven't done this yet. This will be the part that's the most like cathartic, like I'm done. Is behind me whenever I'm working on something. I gotta make sure I'm not like blowing something here. Okay, so I have two shelves right behind me here, and this one is all the Flash reference. So it's all stuff that I was using for Flash reference stuff, right? And I always had it accessible, so I could just grab and flip through, you know, whatever. And then the bottom shelf down here is new stuff. That's why I'm like, oh, make sure you guys I don't accidentally show you that one. But yeah, I always kept the stuff that I really, really liked. I actually really liked the Dastardly Death of the Rogues. That was the Jeff Brightest Day one. I really
Right.
liked that one a lot. And I think if you look at a lot of the stuff, because like I think when you look at what I was doing, I would reference New 52 because I'm a continuity junkie, and I don't think it's fair to like ignore continuity completely and just wipe stuff away.
Right.
So I didn't ignore New 52 at all. I would still reference it, and I didn't use a lot of their villains, and I would still try to play off things a little bit. But I think that one, when it came to my run, the one that I kept going back to was Dastardly Death of the Rogues. Like I would look at that one all the time when I was first starting to figure stuff out of what I was gonna do and what I thought the tone should be. Man, what else, dude? I mean, most of Mark Waid's run I really love. Like I really like Mark Waid's run a lot. I really like Jeff's run. There's some different issues here and there that are like Carrie Bates stuff. I read a lot of Trial of Barry Allen. Like I read it a few different times. I have that omnibus they put out a long time ago. That's the black and white one.
Okay.
I look at that one a lot, and I think you can see some of that in some of the stuff. Every time Eobard was in the book, every time there was like a reverse Flash story, those are always really good. I always like those. You know, I like Flash for Two Worlds a lot. That one is a really good one. Yeah, man, I like a lot of them. I don't know if I can sit there like start breaking them down, but
Yeah,
I
no,
think
I know.
yeah, once you get to like, dude, it's crazy. Like Mark Waid. I mean, when you read, like for me, my entry into the Flash character as a comic character was Return of Barry Allen, and then when you Return of Barry Allen, you get to like issue 80, and issue 80 is like Wally in the new suit, and they do that storyline with Nightwing and Starfire, and then you eventually,
That was my first. 82 was my first Flash.
dude, what's funny about those? I tried to get those covers. Like they were up for bid recently. The one that has like Razor's hands in his shoulders, the Alan Davis one. That
Yes.
was up for bid recently, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to get that, but it went up for way more than I wanted to pay. I actually have I have the cover to Flash 78, which is the one where it's them. It's Barry and Jay fighting, and you see Wally on the ground, and he's like walking away from his suit in the trash.
Hmm.
I have that cover. I have the original art for that one. I actually with Speed Metal. I haven't said this publicly yet, but I probably will in the next week or so. I have a lot of Speed Metal. Like I have the whole last scene. Like from the moment I have the whole last scene from like the moment he sees the family all the way to him running at the ending. And then I have the because that was the thing I actually really wanted. What I wanted in that issue was I wanted three things in that issue. I wanted the first page because it has all the Rebirth stuff on it. Because it basically tells the story of Wally and Rebirth. I
Hmm.
wanted the page where the family's together and he sees the kids and Linda and they're all together. That page, and then I wanted the last page, and this is why. Working on the Flash, almost all of the artists have been digital, all of them. And Howard is also digital. Howard Porter, he's also
Yeah.
digital. And there's always been pages. So I wanted to have the last page of my run, and I couldn't with Howard. That page of Barry running, I couldn't because it's all digital. But because Eddie drew the last page of Speed Metal, and Speed Metal was like the coda ending to my run, I got that page. And then once I had that, I was like, I'm just gonna buy this whole scene. Let me get the whole scene. So I emailed Eddie and I was like, hey, listen. Because he was like, well, I'll give you this. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm not asking for one page. I'm asking for a bunch of stuff. He's like, well, I'll gift you these things. I'm like, no. I'm asking for a few. I'm asking for a whole scene. So yeah, and then one of them I'm giving as a gift to somebody else, to one of the editors in the book. He doesn't know that yet, but he's getting it as a gift. Yeah, man, I that time period of Mark Waid in the early 90s, yeah, because I used to go to Costco and buy those big packs of comics. They'd have all that was when that time period where they were really like getting comics in different places.
Hmm. That's how I got them too.
Yeah, so it's like that, and then you go into then Bart shows up. And I've been having this conversation a lot with people lately about the importance of sidekicks and the importance of how that is an entry point. And so many people I know, and myself included, like we started reading these books at the same. I think it's interesting when you talk to a lot of people that are our age. reading these books, if you ask them when they came in, one of the things that's in common in that time period is there's a lot of sidekicks. Like you had Bart and you had Connor and you had Tim and you had Cassie and you had all these people that were kind of coming in. You know, even like Spoiler was coming around, all these different characters who were sidekicks. And I think that's important that we kind of get back to that of like having sidekicks in, not just sidekicks before, but like introducing new sidekicks that allow us to have like entry points into it. But once Bart shows up, I think that's when that book like became mine. Like I loved it. I was reading, you know, every month. But it's like once Bart shows up, it was a kid that was my age. I had crazy hair like that when I was a kid. And so I was just like, dude, this is mine now. You know, it gave me an ownership of something. I think that's one thing with readers that people don't realize is that like you have to give them something to take ownership of. And a lot of times you're coming into these books and there's a decade or decades of story information here that you're kind of entering somebody else's world, and you have to give them something that's theirs. And I think that's why like the Flash at that time for me is like, well, here's Bart, he's yours. Like when you get to read someone's first appearance when it comes out, that gives you something. You know, it's interesting talking to James. Like James is the same way with Tim Drake, with James Tynion. He's the same way with Tim Drake. And you can see that when you look at his detective run, that guy clearly loves Tim Drake, you know. And so it's like, but that's because that was his Robin. He got to read that and be like, this is mine.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with Legion of Superheroes. Like anytime you talk to somebody about Legion of Superheroes, it's always like their favorite Legion is the Legion they read first, right? Like I read I was reading, but this is what it goes to, right? Because like I was reading Legionnaires and I was reading Legion of Superheroes. It was a 5-year later Legion. I had read it for like maybe a few months. Legionnaires was like they had done that weird thing where they were like clones. And so I was reading that Clone Legionnaires book. I had no idea what was going on. I did not know there were clones. I thought that was just a book of like them hanging out. And when they were young, I thought it was like a flashback book, you know? I didn't realize it was this weird like proto-clone thing that had happened. But I was reading that, and I still felt like I was reading something else, like somebody else's story. And then when 0 Hour happens, and here's 0 Hour Legion, and you get to start from the beginning, then it was like, this is my Legion. And so I think about that a lot with these books. Anyway, yeah.
And you're talking about, you know, your speed metal issue.
Mm-hmm.
I have had my issues with the treatment of Wally because, like I said, first comic book I ever had was that Flash 82. That was my first.
Oh man!
So Wally's my favorite character, and I didn't like how he was treated. And in one issue, I don't want to say you erased, but you brought him back to where I think he should be in comics.
Yeah,
and
I'm glad.
I can't even describe to you how much I loved that issue. It was probably, I think it might have been my favorite single issue of 2020 so far. That's how much it meant to me as a fan. And I mean, my friend even texted me. He's like, "I think I'm a Wally fan now." And that, you know, and he didn't read all the Wade stuff. Now he wants to read it. But I was wondering, was that something that was really important for you before you left Flash to kind of leave Wally in a better place than not when you started Flash, because he wasn't in a bad spot, but you really left him in a great spot.
Yeah. You know, when we were planning some of this stuff out, and the opportunity to use Wally was always challenging. It was always like a little bit of a fight to get him in the book. And, you know, he was supposed to be in Running Scared, and like it didn't work out. And it was just like always trying to get Wally in the book. And, you know, getting him in, it was bittersweet that I finally got to use him for Perfect Storm, but it was like I knew I got to use him for Perfect Storm because they wanted me to seed what was coming with Flash Force. So I was like, this is great. Like I get to have him for this many issues because, you know, he starts in the book around 40. I think he's in the last page of 40. You know, but I got to have him for, you know, a good chunk of time there from like 40 to 51. It was bittersweet because I knew that he was going to go to Heroes in Crisis after that. But I always thought I would get him back. Like, I always thought I would get him back. And it became more and more apparent I wasn't going to get him back. Even when Flash Forward started, I got kind of, being probably too behind the scenes, I got kind of blindsided by Flash Forward because I thought there was a different plan. And then it was like, okay, we're doing this now. And I was like, okay, well, when am I going to get him back? When am I going to get him back? When am I going to get him back? And once death metal started rolling and we knew that we were going to have Wally in death metal, it was like I was trying to figure out how to get him in finish line. Like that was the whole thing of like, well, how do I get him back for finish line? And it became more and more apparent I just wasn't going to be able to. And so, you know, I wanted him just for the like a scene or something. Like mostly what I really wanted was in speed metal. There's that scene of Barry and Wally talking, and then they shake hands. I was like, that is what I want. Like the biggest image of my run of Barry and Wally is the cover to 47, which is the two of them like clashing. You know, like it's the trade cover. It was the cover we promoted for Flash War. You know, I would go to conventions, and there'd be these humongous banners, like huge, you know, like 2-story banners of flashes, and it's Barry versus Wally. And so it's such an iconic image, I think, of the run that I was like, okay, well, that was that story. I need to resolve this somehow. I need to show the handshake. I need to show them coming to terms with each other. And so that was really important to me. And so I kept trying to figure out, where do I do that? Where do I do that? Where do I do that? And so we started having all these conversations about finish line. And I got this call, and they were just like, we don't, like, you can have all this stuff. You can have the Flash family. You can have all these different things. There just isn't a way to get Wally back, because Wally's thread is, you know, flash forward, then death metal. So that's where he's going. There's no way you're going to get undercut. And I'm like, well, he has these powers now, and the Metron chair, or the Mobius chair from Metron. Like, he has all these things. Maybe there's a way of maneuvering in here somewhere. And so I started piecing stuff together. Well, then I started talking to Scott James a lot, because, you know, the three of us were working on what death metal was going to be. And we started mapping out all this stuff. And then it was like, okay, well, originally the order was going to be different. So speed metal was going to come out much, much later, like much later. And so I was like, well, I feel like when I get to my last Flash issue, I need to be done for a while. Like, I need to be able to say, you know, like I'm done. But speed metal was going to come out so much later that I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll write something else. Maybe I'll write a different special. Maybe I'll write one of these other specials. And I was like, James, we were at a table. We were at a table in, like, I think January. Oh my God, yeah, January. So we were at a table in the DC Comics office in January. And I was like, all right, James, well, you write speed metal, and I'll do one of the other specials. You know, like, that way I can kind of say my piece on the Flash in the Flash book, and, you know, that's it, right? But then once we started planning stuff out deeper and deeper, and I realized I was not going to get Wally for sure in finish line. I could have the one scene with the lightning bolt in 761, but I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I was, man, and once we started really piecing things together, and I realized the way things were happening, and speed metal was, when it was coming out, I just called James. I was like, dude, I need to ask you a favor. Like I need to write that book. You have to give it back to me. and he was like, oh, I totally forgot about that. I thought you were just writing it. So I was like, oh, okay, cool, good, all right, bing, 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 let me do this. So then I got it, and so in my discussions with them, all I cared about was that handshake. I was like, oh, I gotta get the handshake in there. I gotta get the moment where they both are like, all right, cool, we're doing this. And Barry is like, I understand, you know, what he says. It's like, I understand with you before, I'm gonna stand with you now. Like, we're gonna do this. And that was the most important piece in the beginning. And then once I started writing it and started really getting into it and having, you know, and thinking about what I wanted to say about Wally, what I wanted to do with Wally, then it started becoming a much bigger thing. Then it became this thing of like, okay, this isn't just about fixing Barry and Wally. It's about getting Wally to a better place. And, you know, I think redemption is a complicated thing. And I think the idea of what happened in Heroes in Crisis, and I still think that's not completely resolved. You know, I think that it's not as easy to just be like, well, that's it. He's redeemed. And I think it's good that he was able to, at the end of Flash Forward, like, get tasked with this thing and go up against this stuff. But I needed more from that. Like, me as a fan, I needed more from it. And so when I started working on it, I was like, okay, well, how do I get him there? How do I get him to a place where I feel like he has earned his place back? And then how do I also get him in there? And what's interesting was the ending was completely different at one point. The ending was going to be, they get the chair, and they teleport directly to Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. But without getting into spoilers, I was like, I mean, if you've read Trinity Crisis, you know where Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are, right? So I was like, oh, that's not going to work. What do I do with this ending? This is really early. So like, what do I do with this ending? And then I was like, oh man, I don't know exactly what I'm doing. And then it started really coming together. And then I was like, you know what this book is? This book is going to wrap up Wally's story since Rebirth. So that means it needs to start with Rebirth. And so it all just kind of came together. It was this whole process. And I wrote it back in, God, I think I wrote it in March, like March-ish, April-ish. And so, you know, it was around, but also what's interesting is I think knowing it was going to be the end, right? Like sometimes when you're working on this stuff and you're like, oh, you know, I'm going to like have other issues and stuff like that. But when you really know it's the ending and you're really like, okay, this is it. I got to put my all into it. And so with Finish Line, I just put everything I could into that for Barry. And then with this, I just put everything I could in for Wally. I'm not completely done writing Wally, especially in Death Metal. There's like other scenes for Wally in Death Metal. What I would say is that I think people, if you're a DC fan in general, you really should read Last Stories of the DCU. And then you have to read, so there's 2 specials. Well, in December, there's a bunch going on because you have Death Metal 6, and then Death Metal 7 comes out the first week of January. But you also have Secret Origin, which is Scott and Jeff doing a book together. And then you have 2 specials. It's called Last Stories of the DCU. And then you have another one that's called War of the Multiverses. It's like Last 52, War of the Multiverses. Those 2 specials are so important. It's going to be interesting. I think people are going to be like, oh, there's anthologies. And I'm like, no. Like, you're going to want to read those because stuff happens in those. So there's definitely Wally scenes in both of those. And so I wrote those scenes. So yeah, it's Scott, James, and I, we divide up the workload a lot of times when we're co-writing with each other. But all the stuff with Wally from here forward is all, like all the stuff in Death Metal you'll see. If Wally's in a scene, that means I wrote it. But yeah.
Nice.
Coming.
What was that Secret Origin by Scott and Jeff? Did that get solicited, or did you just?
It got solicited. I'm not making that up. That's out there.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it. I didn't think you were making it up.
No.
I glanced over that solicit. All right, cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Wally. So
Yeah.
I know you said you're done with Flash for a while.
Yeah.
But you did your Barry Allen story.
Yeah.
You have a Wally West story in you that you.
Yeah, I mean, I still have more Flash stories. I feel like I wrapped up the story I wanted to tell and what I wanted to say, and in a lot of ways, it wasn't just about Barry; it was about Eobard too. You know, it's like the 2 of them on a path consistently, and wanting to break up some of these paths, like break up the Barry and Eobard path, and then kind of put Wally on a different path over here. Yeah, I still have Flash stories to tell, and there's still things I could do. For right now, I think it's good for me to kind of take a step back a little bit. It's interesting. When I first started, I remember thinking about how Mark came back to Flash, Jeff came back to Flash, and I was like, I'm not doing that. And now I'm like, oh, I could easily do it. I understand now. Like, I understand why they did, because it's like, it becomes such a part of you that, yeah, I could easily go back to it. I think it would be a little bit before that happened. But yeah, I still have stories, and especially Flash family stories, stuff with Wally and the kids, and the stuff with Bart and Avery and Wallace. Like, there's definitely a lot of pieces that I think I could still play with and I have ideas for. I just knew that with Finish Line being the way it was, that had to be the ending. It was so big, it was like I couldn't follow up with it with a bunch of smaller stories, which was a conversation we had. Like, it was like at one point we had talked about maybe continuing past Finish Line. This is in March as well. Like, in March, they were like, well, do you want to continue on and do this, and like continue on a little bit? And I was like, no, like, this is it. This is the end of this story. But yeah, I definitely have Wally stuff, and I definitely have stuff with all the other characters. I definitely have Flash family stories and things like that I want to do eventually.
Awesome. And they have collections. We have Flash by Mark Waid. We have Flash by Jeff. Yeah. Are we going to get some Flash by Joshua Williamson? Because they have hardcovers. They had the deluxe editions, and they dropped it 3. So
The deluxe edition thing bugs me because the reason why they stopped doing that is they kind of stopped doing it on all of them except for Batman for obvious reasons, right? Like you're never gonna
Right.
like Batman's always gonna get what Batman wants, right? Like he is the spoiled rich kid of the DC universe, so it's like he's always gonna. Recently, I was doing an email and I was talking to them about something. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I know what it was. It was for something for next year, and I was like, yeah, but Batman's gonna be in it. But I wrote like our Lord and Savior Batman will be in it. Like, don't worry. But yeah, like that bugged me because it was like they stopped the third volume, but then the fourth volume would have had Perfect Storm and Flashport in it, and it would have been like a perfect. It would have been so yeah. When they stopped there, I definitely was like, yeah. I think eventually. I mean, look at Mark Waid. Like it took 20 years for them to do
I
that.
don't want to wait 20
Like
years.
I mean, same with Jeff, dude. Like Jeff, it's like I mean, Jeff stuff got recollected a few times because they did. I have those omnibuses up here.
Right.
The first run omnibuses they did. I mean, my run is difficult to collect like that. I think because you would have to collect it in these giant bookends, these giant things. So with Francis and Brian's run, they recently collected that. I say recently, but I think it was like a year ago. They collected their run in one big omnibus. I have that up there too, and it's like it's 25 issues worth. There's a couple stragglers because there's annuals, and I think Brian stayed on for a couple issues after Francis. All that's collected in one big book, but that was 25 issues, maybe 30 total. Mine is 101 plus the annuals plus little like one-shot stories and stuff. So you're talking about like I think all in all I wrote like 107 scripts that were like Flash stories focusing on Flash. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I would love to have those collections. It's just a matter of time, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm just a sucker for hardcovers, and I just want.
Me too.
I want to see you on the shelf the whole run. You know what I mean? Well, however it's collected, omnibus, softcover, I'll take whatever I can get. But your run is definitely one that I want to have in both formats. You know?
Yeah, I want to do that too. I have hardcover, so I mean, yeah, I'm definitely like I'm an upgrader. So it's like if I ask me to softcover and then it's hardcover, I will upgrade. You know,
Same.
I still keep like old editions of things because like up here, you know, I have all of my like here, up here I have all of my Flash trades up here. But it's like, you know, let me see here. Which ones of these are it? Let's see. Yeah, like I have all my Flash trades up there, but I still have like my old ones too. Like it's not all. One of these is actually signed by Mark from back then. Actually, I think one of the best things that happened recently. Let me see. My Terminal Velocity trade is signed by Mark. I'm trying to remember where my Terminal Velocity trade is. But yeah, that's actually, my Terminal Velocity trade is around somewhere.
Nice.
And that one is actually signed by Mark. I got it signed when I was in, you know, like 13 or 14 or whatever. But actually one of the best things of this whole thing was one day out of the blue, I got an email from Mark Waid. And he was just very happy with the ending. Like because he still reads it. He just reads it. So he was happy with the ending to Flash and Speed Metal wrote me like a nice email, a nice note about it. Like totally unprompted, came out of nowhere. It was like a nice moment to, you know, for the person who wrote it, you know, my favorite Flash, like wrote it then, you know, and wrote the beginning of my love of the character. If I made a note, it was very much like it was a nice like release. It's like,
That's
I
crazy.
did it. Like, you know, yeah. And he and I talk about it sometimes. He knew it was coming. Well, kind of. He and I talked like, man, I don't know, like a year and a half ago, I think. We email each other occasionally, but I think he and I talked in person. And I told him some of the stuff that was coming. So he didn't know about all the stuff about the ending. He didn't know about Speed Metal, and he didn't know about the actual ending with Eobard and all that stuff. So it was nice to get that email from him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine, man. If I ever wrote Flash and then to get from him, like that's insane. That's so fucking cool, dude.
Yeah, it's nice to know that he still reads it and enjoys it. Like it's weird now because like, dude, I don't really know what they're doing. Like I know, like it's interesting. I know little bits and pieces, but I've purposely not asked. Like I know I'm so embedded with DC at this point and with the stuff I work on that it's like I know pretty much everything is planned, but with Flash, I purposely don't dig. I don't ask a lot of questions, partially
Hmm.
because I worry that I will start being like, no, 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 this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. Like, or what? You're doing that? No, 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 you want to do this. You want to do this. So I purposely kind of avoided asking too many questions because I don't want to get in there too much. Because I know that's how my brain works. Like, no matter what. Anytime somebody's doing anything Flash related, I was always like, well, see, let me tell you something. So, yeah, we'll see
Do
how it
you
goes.
know? You said like try not to dig, but do you know in terms of creatives of what the plan, if what's going to happen? Because I know that I saw an arc that's coming out post the conclusion
Hmm.
of Wars, but then we have this endless winter, and is that just a fun arc? Because it's not like they're promoting it as like, oh, the new creative team. So is there?
I probably shouldn't talk about it too much to like mess up somebody else's plans, you know.
Okay.
But that guy, the guy who's working on it right now, Kevin, he works on the Spider-Man cartoon, and he developed the last one, which I actually watched my daughter, and it's a very good cartoon. That Spider-Man cartoon is very good. That's the most I could probably say right now without messing up somebody else's stuff.
Okay. All
I
right.
wouldn't want anybody doing that to me because I'm writing books next year, and I would hate it if somebody was like, "Oh, Josh is writing this, this, and this," and I'd be like, "What the hell, dude? Like, why are
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
spoiling
No,
my
no, I
stuff?"
understand it. This
You
is
know?
just for me, man.
Yeah, I get it.
And then so another thing, you're like now let's jump into you're writing Justice League, by the way, which was my favorite tie-in to Metal so far. I think that Justice League issue was phenomenal, dude.
Oh, thanks, man.
Um, is this just going to be the arc for Metal, or are
Yeah, I'm only writing Justice League for a little bit. I'll write a
okay?
little bit after Death Metal, but I'm not the main writer. I'm not taking over the book.
Okay.
I definitely have a lot of Justice League stories I want to do, and I have like passion for that, and I definitely want to do more with that. And I have like a whole like Justice League story in mind that I want to do eventually. But with this was just about doing this. Like it was just about coming in for doing Death Metal and then like a little thing afterward. I'm not gonna be the I'm not the regular writer on the book. It isn't the right time right now. Like
Okay.
eventually I will do Justice League, but it just isn't the right time right now.
Okay. And then are there any other DC projects that you can tease that you're working on, or are you working on other ongoings?
No, because I think anything I would say would like blow it. But I'm definitely working on like multiple stuff. I'm probably working on too much. I realized yesterday. I was talking to them yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have so much free time on my hands now. The Flash is over." And they were like, "Aren't you doing this, 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 this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I am doing all that stuff." So no, my workload is not like even though Flash was double ship and I was doing all that, my workload has not changed at all. Like I'm still doing a lot of stuff for DC, but yeah, I can't. I would be worried that if I started saying, "Oh, I'm doing like even hints," people would you would figure it out. Like you'd be like, "Oh, that's this and this." But I'm definitely doing a lot for DC next year.
Ongoings
So
though?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool. Very
yeah, a lot.
excited. Very excited.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm definitely doing some really big projects. Some very 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 big projects for them next year.
awesome, dude. I can't wait. And you also, like you were talking about at the top of the show, you brought back Nailbiter. So,
Yeah.
what made you decide that now was the time to return to the title after a break?
I think that last year I had a plan. Like I just had a story I wanted to tell, and I started seeing it. And then Mike and I had been talking about it. Mike and I have other creator-owned books we want to get to eventually, but we knew we had this one more, and we have like a bunch of nail biter stories we want to do.
Mhm.
And this one is only 10 issues long, and so we
Okay.
were like, and then we'll bring it back. Like we have like a whole plan for what we want to do. Um, we have a bunch of different nail biter ideas we want to do and different stories we want to do. And so we had this conversation, how do we start getting there? And so that's where this came from. It was like, I really want to do another nail biter story. I have this idea in mind. I want to get back to that world and these characters. And so did Mike too. We kind of went our separate ways. Like I went to DC, he went to Marvel. And so once his schedule freed up, that's more about why now was about our
Okay.
schedule, to be honest. It was more like I think we also had a need to get back to that and a need to get back to horror, but it was more about like how do we come back around on a schedule standpoint. We knew these stories we wanted to tell, and so it was the right timing.
And are there any other creator-owned stuff that you're working on right now?
Yeah, man.
Titles,
I
but
what's that?
You don't have to like spoil it, but are there other?
No, dude, yeah, so much. It's funny, when I was working on Flash, I didn't have that many creator-owned ideas. I would have like one or two occasionally, and I would talk to people about them. But last summer, it was like a flood opened, and I had all of these different ideas and stories I wanted to do, and so it's just slowly about getting them together. That was one of the things of the pandemic that actually kind of stalled out a little bit, was the creator-owned stuff I was working on. But yeah, dude, I have like a whiteboard over here in my office, and it's broken up by projects, and the creator-owned thing is packed. I mean, there's just lines of information of what I want to do, and so sometime next year, I'll probably start getting back to it a little bit more. I kind of wanted to clear my plate a little bit, like completely clear the plate, not just be like, okay, I'm wrapping up these projects, but clear it completely, before I started getting going on it again. So,
Okay.
I've cleared out a lot of stuff. I'm working on a couple books right now. They're a little more immediate. There's a lot of planning stages, lots of planning stages for DC stuff and writing DC stuff right now. But I wanted to clear the plate of Nailbiter stuff a little bit and Birthright stuff before I start really digging in, which is funny because I have like a lot of artists, a lot of publishers that are very much like, when is this coming? When are you going to do this? And I'm like, I'm going to try. I just got layouts for a new creator-owned graphic novel I want to do yesterday, and the layouts are coming in, and I have to actually get back to the artist. But it's like, things are so crazy all the time now that it's like, I definitely am like, I mean, you see this, like, I'm not the best at communication lately, because it's like I get so many emails. I get so many emails and so much stuff, and I'm always like trying to. It's like the best way to get work done is almost to ignore the emails, and
Yeah.
but then I'm always playing catch up when I get back to it. I'm always like, oh my gosh, so many emails here. All right, cool, let's do it. Start answering emails in the middle of the night or whatever I can do, and it takes some time, and but I'm getting close to be able to do more creator on next year.
All right, cool. And another side question to that:
Yeah.
have you thought about? I mean, we're seeing what like Lemire and Kent did with their book. With
Oh, Kickstarters?
we're seeing what Scott and Tony Daniel are doing with theirs. Now, I know that Noctera is going to also come out at Image.
Yeah.
Have you thought about doing the same thing where for your fans you do those kind of like cool deluxe hardcover editions or something like that, and then bring it to the publisher for?
Yes, it depends on the project. I think certain projects lean a certain way. I think that when you do, you have to kind of cater to that audience and cater to your fans when you're doing it. Like some of the creator stuff I'm working on right now, so it's very different. Like, so it's a wide range and a spectrum of things.
Mhm.
But I think if I had the right project with the right creative team, I would definitely do that. Like, I would definitely do something of that level of like, this very much, it's for the fans engagement, like what Scott did particularly. I think what Lemire and Charles Soule did, like Charles Soule did Curse Words. He did the collected edition as a Kickstarter, and then you had Lemire and Kent did theirs. But then when Scott did his was much more about that engagement. Like, it was really all about that, which is part of why I think it was so successful. And it was this, and Scott's so that, like Scott's such a cheerleader, and Scott is definitely like, he always calls himself the carnival barker, and he is that. Like, he's great at it. And I think being able to do that with the Kickstarter was really successful. But I also know, being friends with Scott and talking to him all the time, how much work went into that.
Mhm.
Like, I was joking with him when the Kickstarter ended. I literally was like, did you just black out? Like, the moment the Kickstarter hit 0, did you just like your eyes roll back and you like fell asleep? Because he'd been working nonstop on it even before, like weeks leading into it. He was working on it, and then it was like, boom, here it is. While we're still working on death metal, so he was just like, I'm not sleeping. Like, I'm just working my butt off to get this thing going. So it's a lot of work. So it'd be, and I think here's the thing, like, to do the Kickstarters right, you have to really be able to put yourself into it.
Mhm.
And I would just need to make sure that when I do it, I'm able to do that thing, like really dig in and do something really special. But it's definitely been on my mind, of doing something like that. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I got a lot of work ahead of me. That's the truth. Like, I have so much stuff to do, and all these creator-owned books I want to do, and talking to artists. I'm probably doing too much, but I feel like, that's just the drive there. I want to do all this stuff. I want to do more. So yeah.
Yeah, and all your fans are here for it, man. Because I like I said, you're one of my favorite writers. I loved what you did with the Flash. I love your creator own stuff. So
Thanks, man.
forward to the next project you do.
Oh, thanks, dude.
I just wanted to ask, what books and creators are you currently digging right now?
Oh, a lot of them. I actually just read Blue and Green. That was
Mhm.
Ron V's new graphic novel. I'm forgetting the artist's name. I apologize. But I read his graphic novel a few weeks ago. That was really good. I've read a lot of Department of Truth by James Tynion. I think it's really good. I read Commander in Crisis, Steve Orlando's new book that's coming out from
Right.
Image. I read it. What's interesting about us, like a lot of us creators talk to each other, and so we pass these things around long before they came out. So it's like there's a lot of books that aren't out yet that I've read. There's that new Dan Waters book about the haunted houses. I forget what it's called right now, but
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, it's something pilots. Let me feel bad because I actually read them all. I told him a couple days ago. He sent them to me. He sent me the first 3 issues a few days ago, and I read them all like in one sitting. And I was like, dude, this is so good. This is really good. I really like Mariko's Wonder Woman. I have like so many stacks of books around here for stuff I've been reading. Brubaker's Pulp I thought was really good.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
I'm really behind on Immortal Hulk. I'm like waiting for have like a weekend where I can sit down and read like cause I'm behind a lot. Like it's really weird. I'm like how often does this book come out? I'm so far behind. But I'm like a hardcover behind. That's how hard behind I am. Like I have it. Like I think as we realize you're really far behind on a book when not only the first hardcover comes out, but the second hardcover, and they take a while
Yeah.
to come out. So I'm like, oh man, that's how far behind I am. Holy crap! So I have that to read. I really like Venom. I really like Donnie's crossover. I think crossover is really good. What else is really good? I've been reading. This is gonna sound like this is not related to anything I'm working on, so I'm just putting that out there. I reread almost all of Jeff's Aquaman. I was on an Aquaman kick recently. I just love that character, so I was reading a lot of stuff, and I reread. I'm on like issue 21 or 22 of Jeff's Aquaman run. Been reading that. I started rereading Ultimate Spider-Man, like just
Oh,
out of the
I love
blue.
it.
I think talking to my daughter about Spider-Man a lot. I started rereading Ultimate Spider-Man. Now I'm in the Venom arc of Ultimate Spider-Man when Venom first got introduced, and Eddie Brock was like this fucking weirdo college kid.
Yeah, I love that run too. That's
Dude, it's so good. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
good. And it reads so fast. Like I was like, holy crap, I'm in the 30s already. I was like, because part of me was like, man, he introduced Venom in like issue 18 or something. And then I'm like, no wait, this is issue 32.
Yeah.
That first 2 years is because he like very suddenly comes back around to the Green Goblin stuff really quickly. Partially,
Mhm.
I think, is me speculating, and I could ask Bendis this if I wanted, but when you read Ultimate Spider-Man the first 2 years, the second year, like suddenly jumps back into a Green Goblin story very quickly. And I think that's because the movie was coming out. The first Spider-Man movie was coming out when issue
Oh,
25 was
right.
coming out. And so I think they were like, you need to get back to Green Goblin because the movie's coming out. I'm just be guessing based on stuff that, we experience.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if that's what was going on. Once in Future is really good. I reread Essex County, which is Jeff Lemire. I read a
Oh,
lot
love
of
that.
that. Yeah, I read that whole book a few weeks ago. Sentient came out from Lemire. I like that. I haven't read. I have them on my iPad. I bought off Comixology. I bought the new Iron Man and the new X-Men event. I haven't read them yet.
Mhm.
What else haven't I read yet? Dude, I read a lot of comics. Like I
Yeah,
read,
same here, dude.
so I read a lot of stuff. I mean, I read a lot of stuff on Wednesday morning. I'm behind on some things. I'm reading. Only reason why I'm reading less of DC Comics stuff is because of just trying to take a step back for a minute because I'm starting to work on other things, and so I want to like start to work on other DC stuff. And so I'm such a continuity junkie that I think sometimes I'll get caught up in it. So whenever I'm starting to work on something, I'll take a step back for a minute from it
Mhm.
to not be so embedded in the world. Because I can get very precious about DC stuff. I think it's a flaw that I have in the writing sometimes is I'll get too precious about the continuity or too precious about the characters. So I have to kind of like take a step back every once in a while, look at it from above a little bit. But I'm gonna reread before I read the X-Men event. I'm gonna reread House of X and Powers of X.
That was
I read it when it came out, but I still have it on
same.
cover. Before I read the event, I'll probably just reread this bad boy here. What else on my desk? there's stuff on my desk right now that is like super spoilers. I was like, I almost pulled something up and was like, I'm reading this right now,
God
but that
damn
would have
it.
given away like everything.
Fuck.
So I'd be like, oh, that'd be a problem. What else? Dude? There's stacks of books around here. There's so much stuff. But yeah, dude, I read a lot. I read a lot of comics. I'm trying to like catch up on some stuff from the past that I haven't read. Like some create your own books that I'm like really, really far behind on that I haven't had a chance to read yet.
Mhm.
With DC stuff, I mean, I basically do read everything, so it's always kind of a weird objective of like,
Right.
because there's a difference between scanning it. I got into a bad habit with some books, especially DC stuff, of just scanning it for continuity, because I was working on so much that it was like, okay, this is where the characters are. All right, cool. And not reading it, and so, but I get that from Marvel, but also with DC, it's weird because I know what's coming a lot of times. I'm rarely,
Right.
so it's like I know what's coming just from conversations and meetings and stuff. So Marvel, it's good to kind of read Marvel books, have no idea, even though, I mean, yeah, I'll say I don't know what's coming. But with Marvel stuff, it's good to kind of like read those because I don't know. You know, like I read Empire and I liked Empire, so it was like I didn't know how Empire was going to end. I didn't know all the pieces of it. And Image books are the same way, like being able to dig in and read some stuff. I read the plot recently from Vault.
Mhm.
That's still in the bedroom. I read that. What else? Yeah, I did a lot. I
Yeah,
try
dude.
to read a lot of stuff. When it comes to creator own books, I try to read them in like blocks, you know, like a trade worth.
Right. Yeah, it's easier that way for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I read a lot, dude. Probably too much.
I feel the same way. I mean, my to read pile is astronomical. I mean, it's not, and not the single issues. I make sure I read those every week
Yeah.
to date, especially because I work at a shop, so I want to know
Oh
what I'm talking
yeah.
about. But in terms of trades, like I'm buying 3 before I finish reading 1. You know what I mean? So the
Yeah.
it's huge.
Yeah. I have a stack down here of single issues because I still get mail order. Like I still, because I can't go to the comic shops, I have a mail order from a shop that comes once a month.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'll open those up. Sometimes I'll open the box up and I'll pull my comics out and I'm like, oh my God, I'm behind on this one. Or I'm like, I actually bought this digital when it came out because I wanted to read it that day. So, okay. Like, you know, but then they stack up. Like I'm behind on, like one of my favorite Marvel books is Amazing Spider-Man. So I read that one, the Nick Spencer one. So I read that one, but I'm so far behind. I'm so far behind on the X-Men stuff. But I have like a stack of those Wolverine comics that have been coming out. So
Right.
I have those down here. There's a ton of stuff, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like stacks of comics around here. I mean, I basically live in like stacks. One time, I'll tell you the story. And then I have to go.
Okay.
Basically, when I was well, we can. If you have any more questions you want to go over,
I had one quick one, but
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'll tell you the story after. Go ahead.
okay. I wanted to ask your opinion on how to cultivate. What do you think we need to do to cultivate like young readership? That was my last question.
It is a constant topic of conversation. I was just talking about this last night, and I think it is not an easy answer. Like, I think it's about the product and where the product goes and trying something different. And I think one of the things that I recognize recently, I mean, I think that with what I was saying before, you know, about the importance of sidekicks and the importance of having younger characters, I do think one of the solutions to this is to bring in different people, right? Like
Mhm.
bring in more diverse creators and bring in younger voices because they're going to have different perspectives than us. And I think that, you know, you really have to think outside the box. Like, I understand the math of comics. Like, I understand, you know, I worked at a shop too, dude. Like, I'm not sure we were talking about this before, but, you know, I started working at a comic store when I was 14, and I worked at a store all the way up until I was about 24. I worked at 3 different stores, like one in high school, one in college, and then one briefly after that I only worked out for about 2 years. I was the manager for the last year. I have a lot of experience in there, and I think that we have to be able to break some of the paradigms. We have to be able to break, you know, we have to like try new, innovative, and different things maybe we haven't considered before. But that being said, when you look at Scholastic and you look at the book market and those books that they do, I mean, you work at a shop, you see what people buy, you know, and you see what kids gravitate to. Like my daughter, I know what she gravitates to and what she starts to head toward, and it's like she doesn't really. It's interesting to watch her. She's only 4, but it's like to watch how she'll look at something that's like a single issue and it means nothing to her. You know, it's like she it's almost like a magazine to her. Like how we would treat a magazine, like you would kill a bug with the magazine, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but you wouldn't do that with a single issue comic. Unless you hated it. You know what I mean? But for the most part you'd be like you would seriously, like, if you had a bug and you're like, I gotta kill that bug, if you looked around and all you saw was a single issue comic, you would hesitate. Like you probably wouldn't even grab it. You wouldn't even think about it. Right? Yeah. And that's the thing about my daughter. She does not, it's not there for her. She doesn't have that kind of, like what I was saying before, preciousness about it. But when it comes to all of like the graphic novels she has, right? Because I get comics for DC and she goes through them, and you know she really likes Harley Quinn and Batgirl, and so we have like some of the little kid ones and different books, and she really likes Spider-Man right now, so she looks at a lot of Spider-Man comics, like the IEW ones that they put out, those trades. But even those thinner trades, she really likes those. There's more meat to it for her. I do think there's much more of a focus on getting that stuff for them. But I do think what we were talking before, I think one of the keys is giving something that they can own. Like I was saying before, it's like with us, like we had these characters that were ours. Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting when you talk to people who are older when they discovered stuff. And it's like, I think our age is early 90s. You get even deeper back, and it's people who were reading, you know, George and Wolfman's Teen Titans, and it's like, yes, you had these characters that had come before, but they introduced people like Starfire and Cyborg and all this stuff. It gave them ownership of it for them, and I think that's one of the keys, at least for DC, is to give them more things to have ownership of, like to introduce new characters or to change things up a little bit so that people can say like, that's mine, of that, that's mine. Even Ultimate Spider-Man, there are people out there that are like, Ultimate Spider-Man was the first book I read, and that's something important to them. So all of those things are things to try to grab. But all right, so the story I wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the last thing, and I gotta go. When I was a kid, when I was young, I had so many long boxes full of comics, right? And when I was a little older, I was thinking, I mean, you know, I sold my collection in 2008. And I had 100 long boxes by then. I mean, I had a crazy collection of comic books, and I sold it all like in piecemeal, like in bits and pieces. I sold like things off into sets. But I remember when it was like the early 2000s, I was trying to organize the comics, and I was trying to figure them out. And I'm like, it was like the last time before I organized up to 2008. Like it was the last time I was like, all right, I'm gonna organize this. And I had this wall of long boxes, you know, and I was just like organizing everything and trying to figure some stuff out. And I was on the ground organizing, and I had just taken this box, I organized it, put it up on top, you know, and then sat back down. I'm on the ground organizing, and I heard something behind me. And what happened was it got too tall, and it was falling. Like the long boxes were about to fall. And I literally like dived out of the way, and the box that I just put up fell and broke open, and just issues of cable just flew into the air. And I remember being like laying there and being like, if that had killed me, I think that would have been about right. Like I feel like a giant long box full of cable comics is the thing that does me in. I think that feels like that's right to me. That's the death. That's the thing to put in the obit. So anyway, yeah, I was gonna tell you that.
That's hilarious, dude. All right, well, thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much
for doing this with me, dude. It's been a pleasure. Real quick, if you could just shout out where we can find you online before we get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, you can just go to my Twitter account, which is Williamson_Josh. That's where I mostly do, like, this is what's coming out. This is teasers for art, things like that. I do have an Instagram that is just my name. It's like Williamson. I think it's Williamson I think it's just Joshua Williamson. I never use it. That's real good stuff that I might post a picture of a comic book or a toy or something. It's not really as much about promotion, but those are the two places. If you go to my Twitter, you got everything you need.
All right, cool. And again, thank you so much. And
yeah, thanks, man.
Do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure.